Hello and welcome to my video project, my assignment 2 for high performance coaching. What you can see on the screen now is my needs analysis. So I have spoke to my client Joe and asked him some questions which he's going to respond to in a short video about his sport, his position and things he wants to work on within our training, and also any injury issues that he has. So to touch on this needs analysis a bit more, I'm going to talk about energy demands in the sport football. So football is an intermittent sport in nature, so it's very stop-start. Players can hit up to 9 to 14 kilometres in distance, and they can be walking, they can be jogging, they can be sprinting. Sprinting occurs roughly every 90 to 120 seconds, lasting 2 to 4 seconds. So it can be quite sprint heavy. And players can perform 150 to 250 short intense actions with 1200 to 1400 changes of direction, and that's from Moa et al. In the average competitive match, participants can use 70 to 80% of VO2 max or 80 to 90% of their maximal heart rate, HR max, independent of the playing level. With respect to HR training zones, approximately 65% of the total match duration is spent at intensity of 70 to 90% HR max and rarely below 65% HR max. And the average blood lactate concentrations of 2 to 10 mm's have been observed during football games, and that's all according to current research. So to look at the biomechanics more of football, which I will go over with Joe also, kicking, running, heading and throwing are the main biomechanics. The main mechanic being kicking. The kick's characterised by segmental and joint rotations in multiple planes. Basically the joints doing different movements to complete the backwards and forwards motion of a kick. I will be explaining that a bit more to Joe just so he understands that before the training and what those biomechanics are. And what you can also see is some research done by people in the field on the hip flexion and knee extension and ankle plantar flexion, essentially showing different studies on what they found within the biomechanics of football, which is helpful. And so also to touch on the nutritional demands, football's so you need quite a balanced diet in football. You can burn up between 1,500 and 2,000 calories a game, according to Bangsbo 2014. So your diet does need to be high in calories, but you need to get all your nutrients. So it's quite heavy on carbohydrates, getting your protein, and getting some fats in there as well. Footballers do have to look after the bodies before, after the game and during training. So essentially it's a full-time looking after your body in regard to food and nutrition demands. Just to touch on also injury risks. So the main risks in football, according to research from Ranama 2011, is that sprains of the ankle and knee and strains of the hamstring and groin muscles are known as the 4 dominating injury types, and they account for more than 50% of all football injuries. As you can see, over 65% of football injuries are classified as minor, 25 moderate and 10 serious. Approximately 50% of football injuries occur from direct play-to-play contact, including collisions, tackling and being tackled, while the rest, non-contact, happen during performance of actions like running, shooting, turning, heading, so things without contact. I will be taking questions from Joe and talking about any issues he will be having before we start the training, and also during if he has any other questions.
Hi Ryan, just to answer your questions about my need analysis. A little bit about me. I was a semi-pro footballer before COVID. I now want to get back into playing football. I was actually a centre back, pretty good one. And now I've got a few trials coming up in the next few weeks. I did have an injury during COVID. It's not quite 100% back to where it was. It was a slight hip leg injury. Again, I couldn't figure out what it was, and the doctors just recommended me healing, so I wasn't 100%, but it's feeling a little bit better now. The areas I feel like I need to work on is more strengthening my hip and my leg areas, and then really increasing and improving my explosive strength, increasing my speed and acceleration. In regards to energy demands, biomechanics and nutritional demands, I don't really know what they would be, but it'd be really good to know before we start training. I'm aware of some of the injury risks, such as sprains on the ankle, but again, I'm not as educated on that front. If you need any more information, just let me know, and I can't wait to start training with you next week.
So for the warm-up, the first thing I looked at was why it was important to warm up, essentially. So according to Park et al. 2018, performing warm-ups increases muscle temperature and blood flow, which contributes to improved exercise performance and reduced risk of injuries to muscles and tendons, which is really important. Why you're seeing the warm-up that you're seeing, why we use lunges, essentially they're good for a warm-up for lifting. Research has shown that the lunge can improve muscular strength and running speeds in athletes. Additionally, the lunge is a common exercise in rehabilitation settings for improved lower limb strength and function. So there was a Boyd's article called The Undervalued Lunge, which suggests the lunge exercise strengthens the leg muscles, primarily the gluteus maximus, hamstrings, quadriceps, and the calves, and improves core stability and balance. This will be really important for Joe because he has had some hip and leg problems, and getting that core stability back and working on strengthening those leg muscles and the hip muscles again will be really important. So the main points of the lunge was to start in a standing position, take a step with one foot should be in front and one foot should be behind the torso, similar to a split almost. The feet should be about hip width apart. The distance between the front foot and the back foot should be a length that is greater than a walking stride. The torso should be straight and the abdominals should be tight. The scapula should be retracted and depressed with the eyes looking forward. The toes and knees of both legs should be pointing forward. The back heel should be off the ground, and the correct distance between the front and the back foot will enable the step to be performed more easily. So they're all points that I was making to Joe before and during the exercise. What I was looking for in terms of errors was, and what I saw with Joe, especially at the start, was the stride length was a bit short, so it was important to keep reminding him to really extend that stride length. Watch for the back foot rotating and the knee turning inwards. We're really working on body stability, so it's important to keep those things straight. And we didn't want any injuries this early in the training, of course. Bit more pace in it, try and get an emotion. There you go. Back straight, really good. Keep using those lines. Hold on. Squat, low. 1, 2, 3. Up. Squat. 1, 2, 3. Alright, off we go, Joe. Really good. Boom. 1, 2, 3. Last one, try and get that squat a bit lower. There you go. Well done, really good, Joe. Off go, Joe, give me about 10 seconds. Really good. Feel that pulling on your leg? Feel that pulling on your leg? Good. And switch. Well done. So what you see now is our strength aspect of our training, which is a compound lift, and I chose the squat. Joe mentioned that he had a slight injury to his hip and his leg, so my justification for using the squat in this training was that it's useful for hip and leg strengthening, as stated in a Stuart Yule's article and Coach's Corner on the official UK SCA website and in their articles. So we went with a 5x5 with 3 minutes rest, as it's the standard sets. As Joe stated his issues with his leg and hip, the loading would be kept as low as possible until he is capable and shows that he can do the lift competently. If Joe struggled, I would lower the sets, and if he was finding it too easy, I would use the X+3 method, increasing the number of reps before increasing load. X+3 states you should increase X amount of reps by 1 and keep increasing by 3 if the exercise is still easy. If by 3 reps and the exercise is still easy, the load can be increased. And that was from Robert G. Price. Okay, well, coaches will often prescribe partial spot. So the technical aspects we're looking for the back squat, and we're looking for the shoulder width stance, bar resting on the upper back, hands just outside shoulders, a full grip on the bar, elbows pointed back, hips descend back and down, hips descend lower than knees, the lumbar curve be maintained, heels staying on the ground, and knees in line with toes. Also look at some studies. So coaches will often prescribe partial squats, the rationale being that the knee angle is specific to which occurs during running. Prescribing partial squats should always be considered through analysis of the athlete's training history, their ability to load through their spine, and the power and force characteristics of the event sport. Basically what that means is you can injure yourself doing this variation if not properly coached, which is why we didn't use that variation. Knee and hip lumbar spine is very central to this exercise. It's very common to see individuals from the health and fitness industry squatting and not allowing their knees to go beyond the toes. The knee is stressed in a position beyond the toes. Research does suggest that increasing knee extension does decrease patellofemoral and tibiofemoral compressive forces, as stated by Escamilla 2001, and therefore by increasing the forward motion of the knees during the squat, it will increase the shearing forces through the knees. If stress through the knees is to be minimised, there must be redistribution of the force, and this occurs around the hip and the lumbar spine. Due to the anterior trunk inclination to minimise spine stress forces, excessive forces are potentially transferred through the hips and lumbar spine. That was stated by Fry et al. 2003, thus increasing injury potential to the lower back. With an injury-free athlete, it's important, therefore, to apply correct technique and allow the forces to be distributed evenly through the hips and knees safely to avoid injury, and allowing some anterior trunk inclination and allowing the knees to move forward in front of the toes. And that's basically from an article from the UK SCA. So looking at the from technical perspective and performance perspective, Joe was struggling with the lumbar curve element. What we did was we worked to try and alleviate this using cues such as back up as he bent on it on the downward motion, and also the cue bum out to basically try and do what's called the butt wink, to try and make him point his bum out, making his back straighten slightly. Something that I, as a coach, I attempted to work on. The other main issue was the heels raising. The adjustment to help this was to widen the stance slightly, which did help Joe. As mentioned previously, the main method of progressing this exercise would be the X+3 method. If Joe was still struggling with his back and heels, it may be beneficial to eliminate rep and sets until he had a fuller competency, just so he could do the lift properly before adding lots more reps. So talking more critically, inferiors the UK SCA state, a squat may help Joe, especially with his leg and hip strengthening issue. The main critique in the theory is the question of a full or a partial squat, and in Joe's case, if a partial squat may be more beneficial. However, due to questions about its effect on injuries, it's my belief that the best practice would be the more tried and tested back squat, especially due to Joe's competence. In practice, myself and Joe both struggled with the practicalities of keeping heels down. Some research suggests heels up may be helpful as it eliminates ankle dorsiflexion. It may be helpful to continue research on this if the both of us are struggling, me as a coach and him as the client are struggling, as the participant are struggling to reach full competency in this lift. So the next aspect we're looking at in our training was power, and I decided on the clean and jerk to do for our training. You have to be strong and explosive at every phase of the lift for clean and jerk, from the pull off the ground to the hip drive to the jerk. Each muscle will be taxed and activated during the clean and jerk, which is why it's considered one of the best full body moves. You can do it for strength and power. Doing the clean and jerk will strengthen those individual lifts also. As you can see the technical points of the clean and jerk on the screen. As Joe wanted to work on his explosiveness, I decided to use the clean and jerk for his training. The strength that it develops in the glutes and legs results in the ability to sprint faster and jump higher. One meta-analysis in the British Journal of Sports Medicine concluded that Olympic weightlifting movements result in an improved vertical jump, and this is essential for Joe as a centre-back in football, as he'll be jumping more frequently to head the ball. The clean and jerk is a technically complicated move that requires the lifter to focus on many aspects at once. To make this exercise or any exercise happen, the central nervous system sends signals to the muscles to direct them. This connection between your brain and muscles is also called motor skill. Like a muscle, the central nervous system can be trained to be more efficient and responsive, and the more you practice the movement, the more proficient you're going to be at it. Again, this will be helpful to Joe, as he may be slightly older than most of the trialists that are going for the semi-pro team, as he is 27. It's important to work on his motor skills and try and gain the benefits of his muscles being more responsive, such as reaction time while defending. So the sets and reps, the loadings that we was looking at for the clean and jerk, we was looking to firstly improve the technique, and from recent research, a standard sets and reps would be to do 3 to 5 sets of 3 to 5 reps with 50 to 70% of your 1 rep max. That's the sets and reps that we'd be looking at with Joe, as he's not quite at full competency yet, so it would be just be looking at that technique for now. Some errors that I was looking at for the clean and jerk included inconsistent setup, not staying over the bar, loss of tension in the catch, improper dip and drive, and limited mobility. Joe was struggling with his mobility and holding the bar under him due to his body composition. Variation in the future that could potentially be used is the introduction of using kettlebells instead, to try and work on his competency and also make it easy for him to do the exercises. After some attempts, the idea of Q and Joe to put the bar on the shelf became beneficial. It made him think to really get under the bar. We attempted to work on his dip and drive also, introducing videos and using demonstration as the main resource of improvement. Similar to squats, the progressions could again be to add reps and load using the X+3 method. However, because of his injury and his competency level, it may be more beneficial to keep him on low weights and technically improve first. Aside from getting under the bar, there is no adaptation needed. As far as getting under the bar, it's recommended Joe just practice his competency. It's not causing any injuries. It's just something that he's struggling with. Go. Just clean and jerk. Going on the shelf, pushing through, explosive power. Drop that down. Go for one more, bigger squat. Squat all the way down, push through. Good. Well done, Joe. Bishop et al. States repeated sprint training is a popular training method used by team sport athletes to improve repeat sprint ability. However, despite the belief that such specific training will improve repeat sprint ability more than generic training, for example, interval training, very few studies have directly compared these two forms of training. He states repeated sprint training has been reported to produce greater improvements in best sprint time and mean sprint time compared with interval-based training, which I used to justify using this method. In terms of reps and load of the exercise, I decided to incorporate Bushite et al. 2010's program. Bushite's worked with Paris Saint-Germain and other team-based sports. Essentially, Joe's doing 3 to 4 accelerations for 5 seconds over a 30-second period and then having 3 minutes rest. And he would be doing this 2 days a week for a 4-week program. On the video, of course, he's only doing it as one time. He's not following the whole program, but ideally he would be following that as a program. As it was a more recent study and Bishop's research showed it to be one of the best methods for increasing the speed of multiple sprints, which would have been useful for Joe in a sport like football, where he will be doing many sprints a game instead of a sprint runner, for example, who's only doing a singular sprint. Bushite also states that it helps the metabolic and neuromuscular systems, as it's under 60 seconds but with an extended rest. Joe's previous was unaffected in this Joe's previous injury was unaffected in this exercise. If it was if you needed an adaptation, maybe to change to a more comfortable piece of equipment such as a bike or a rowing machine until he could sprint without pain, that is maybe something we could look at as an adaptation. A criticism of this training may be that it could have been on a curved treadmill instead, which the participant may have benefited from, as a lot of the sprint training is done on those types of treadmills as opposed to just a normal treadmill. Running. What more I want you to do. So now we're doing some acceleration drills from the UKSCA. So Joe's just gonna, yep, off we go. Really good, high knees. Hold on, I'm back. Knee nice and high, well done. Good job. Bounce. Good job, well done. Nice fluid movement. Well done. There you go, hands up, knees up. Really good. Fluid movements. Well done, really explosive. Well done, Joe. There you go. Good job. So this is the final aspect, the speed and agility aspect. Decided on acceleration training. So linking repeated and sprint training seemed beneficial, as if Joe was improving technically in acceleration training, then his repeated sprint training may become improved, and potentially reps and timings could be increased. Bishop suggests this may be the case, but more research must be done on the link between repeat sprint ability and speed training. In support of this, a targeted sprint agility training protocol incorporating incomplete rest periods improves mean sprint time by 2.2% in a group of young soccer players. These changes in mean sprint time were associated with concurrent improvements in a single sprint performance, approximately a 2.7% reduction in 10-meter sprint time. While no changes in aerobic fitness were observed, improving Joe's acceleration technique could help with something he wanted to improve upon, his explosive speed, which justified using this training. Joe was first observed in an acceleration warm-up and weight sled drill, which was used to assess his technique, arm movements and leg-feet movements, plus his overall body position when attempting to gain acceleration. Joe then worked on his set-off technique and acceleration over 10, 20 and 30 meters, with some cues like head down and simply improving his starting position, which he made quick progress in. However, due to the high intensity of the exercise, the load was shortened for his first session to a 10 meter, 20 meter, 30 meter instead of standard load of 5 meter, 30 meter, 35 meter times 4 reps. And after each run, you would then rest for 1 to 2 minutes. After each run, you would rest for 1 to 2 minutes. After the entire rep, you would rest for 5. And this would focus on explosive quick movements, low heel recovery, arm swing and posture. Joe struggled with the technical aspects of sprinting, including keeping his head down, leaning backwards and his low straight arm swings. We worked on keeping the head down and maintaining a streamlined posture for an extended time when beginning a sprint. A criticism of this training may be its lack of depth in the technical aspects of gaining acceleration, which I may need to work on more with Joe. A higher level of testing and seeing which technical aspects of acceleration Joe is missing will be key to improving his acceleration. Before the participant started the training program for the video project, he was asked to sign a consent form. So he read over the consent form, made sure he was okay with everything we was going to do in the video project, and he was able to ask me any questions or if he had any queries about the video project. That will conclude my video project. Thank you for watching.